If I could tell you how excited I am for this series, I would, but I don't have the words to describe it. So I'm just gonna say, welcome back to my first ever, what is it called? Oh my god, Avatar: The Last Airbender reaction, okay? I'm so excited. I got my little notes here that we're gonna go through, okay? This is not actually a reaction, it's more of a review because my camera freaking dies after like 40 minutes of recording. So, we're gonna get to it. First of all, let me just say this, okay? Stick with me. I know it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be good, so just stick with me. I have been an avid, huge fan of original series for what, like 10 years possibly? Like more, probably more than 10 years. And I have watched the series way too many times than necessary. Well, is it really unnecessary? It's not, because it really makes me happy. So I know it like inside out, and I was so excited when this show was announced. I didn't like that it was on Netflix because I know the way they work, but I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. It certainly has to be better than a movie, that movie that we're not gonna talk about. So, you will tell me your opinions in the comments, please do, okay? Tell me, what did you think about this? They released all episodes, all 8 episodes, right? I'm gonna review 2 of them because that's how much I watched so far. So, let us start from the beginning. Okay, so episode 1. Right off the bat, we are starting with this awesome earthbending. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there. The earthbending, the way it was showcased here, it just put it in a way where you would, if bending existed in the real world, there is no way in hell that earth bending wouldn't be the most powerful, because when he twisted that earth and essentially shot rock-sized bullets at them, it was over. Like, you cannot defend from that. There's no way. Like, you would be dead. So that was very awesome. And also the brutality of firebending was really cool, because you could, like, they're literally all burned to crisp, which obviously they can't do on a kids show. But you saw that, right? Like, you saw that happen, and it was pretty cool. So the beginning of that was very well done. The effects, the visuals, everything was good. Now, I will also talk, of course, about the flaws and things that I would have changed. So, for example, Sozin, right? Is that his name? I keep forgetting. The Sozin, the Emperor. He didn't look believable to me. That will be my first flaw in this first episode, because it just kind of looked like a fake beard, like everything kind of looked fake on him, like that's not actually him. So he somewhat took me out of the illusion of him being the actual character from the show. I didn't really necessarily felt it. He was acting well, it just didn't translate that much. It seems a bit too almost like for a child to watch, you know what I mean? So that wasn't the best executed, so that wasn't the best execution of a visual character, but him burning up the guy to death was pretty cute.
Because it is our time.
Then we got the shot of Aang, right? The Aang guy. Okay, let's talk about him. I think his acting is fine. I think it's fine. I think it's sufficient. I think it's good at times. What he is somewhat lacking is the physicality. There is not much movement with the arms. He's not moving a lot as well when he talks. It's just kind of like his face doing all the work, but his physicality is missing. And I know I know that when I say this, like, if I compare it to the animated version, it's gonna be like, well, of course this one's animated, duh. But still, as an actor, you can put a bit more of your body into it, I felt. But his acting is fine. He was out there with the monks, that's how we know from the show, and they all got killed. The way they described it here was everyone was because of the comet happening, right? Most of the monks were at the air temple, and that's where most of, well, all of them were killed, and I'm guessing other ones at the other temples as well, but that was instead, it was just implied because we know it from the show, right? I felt like some of the writing as well could have been fleshed out, and we're gonna talk about that as well. So the monks were killed, the fighting was also well done, Monk Yatso was also very good, he was believable, for example. His face and his acting was believable to me. I felt him, I was like, okay, he makes sense for this character. Flash forward to Aang, well, not flash forward, let's go back to Aang leaving the place. which I felt was anticlimactic because in the original show, Aang left because he was scared. He didn't want to have that obligation, so much responsibility, so he left because he was distraught basically. And here on the show, it was almost kind of like in despite of that. He wasn't really that disturbed by it, so he just left and he was like, oh, let me go back, and then the storm hit him and then he encased himself in ice, which all of that happened, but I felt like it could have been having more emotional impact for me. And then all the airbenders were killed, and then we flash forward to the actual present of the storyline, right? Katara and Sokka. Let's talk about that. I felt like Sokka was actually doing some justice to Sokka. Like the actor was doing his best. I think that he had certain physicality. His acting was okay. I thought that he was doing a decent job. Whereas Katara, on the other hand, well, the actress of her, was not as good. I felt like similar to Aang. There also wasn't much physicality, but unlike Aang, her face as well as the tone of speaking was always the same. When you think about Katara in the original series, she was a bit more feisty, she was a bit more forward and outspoken, like she was not afraid of anything, whereas she was not that. She didn't have this kind of like a crybaby sulking attitude that much. Like she did have it when it comes to her mother and the past that she lived through, but there was not that much of it in the present. It was like she was more sturdy and more confident in herself. And more Sokka would nag on her, she would be more determined to actually use waterbending, which is how he got freed, right? Because she wanted to see what the hell is inside of that iceberg. So I felt like the actress was not really doing that well. The constantly was the same tone of, well, you know, my mother died, and like it was very much that. I didn't feel it. And I think that her teaching the waterbending, well, we're going to talk about it in the episode too, but yeah, let's just get back on track. They find Aang because of her waterbending. Somehow she can't even bring a puddle out of the water, but she's managing to destroy the whole iceberg. I feel like that could have been done also better, but it happened. I know that there's 8 episodes here in Netflix series, and there's 20 for the original series, so they kind of have to like cram this up all in 8 episodes, so some of the things are gonna be lost and will have to be, you know, shortened to get the entire story out in 8 episodes. So I understand it. They free him. He's being like, oh my god, where the hell am I? And again, there's this lack of physical acting. I feel like he could have moved better, and this is maybe the last time that I'm gonna say it, so just so you can remember that. The way he's flying around is cute though. Again, the effects are lovely and I think he's flying well. Oh, we need to talk about that intro, which didn't really make, like, why CGI? Like they could have had actual people do all the moves and put in the file, like I get it, but they didn't have to CGI the person, and all, like I didn't think it was necessary. But it did happen. So they go back to the village and you have grandma looking busted. Like, I don't know why they made her look like that. She wasn't witty, she wasn't wise. She was basically just a character to give out all the information so the new fans who didn't watch the show know what happens. Like that's basically it. And I know my friend said that the episode feels rushed, where I didn't really get the sense of rushing. I just felt the lack of polish, let's say. I will say that. For example, why is grandma just a blank canvas basically? He's just a vessel to give you this information to, like, from A to B. Like that's it. Like she wasn't really giving you any impactful monologue, any character, any wittiness, anything funny, anything just likable really. She was just there to say, yeah, Avatar disappeared, now he showed up, here, take the scroll, bye. Like that's basically all she did, and that's what happened. Then we move on to Zuko and Iroh. I will right off the bat say that Iroh's actor is really good. I think that he portrays all the niceness and kindness that Uncle Iroh had in the original series. I think he's acting well. I think the facial hair, like everything looks pretty much natural, and he's good. He's good. I like him possibly the most out of everybody here. And then we get to Zuko, and I feel like he does have this Zuko look, right? Like he does have that look, but I don't think that he does have the same energy as Zuko. Zuko was more about pride, and even though he was angry, he was also a bit like almost nasty. and he wasn't a crybaby, and he was like in this show Zuko is portrayed either as A, angry, or as B, as a crybaby, like constantly sulking, like, but what, like, we need to find the Avatar, but what if we don't find him? Like, it was basically like those polar opposites where it's like that can be all that you have, like there has to be some depth here. And I'm not even blaming the actors for this, I'm really not. I think that they can do a better job than it was portrayed so far in these 2 episodes that I've seen. I think it's the directorial issues. I don't think that the director is being like, okay, you are gonna repeat that scene, you're gonna look at him as he walks around, you're gonna give me more depth, you're gonna be more emotive, you're gonna say this with, you're gonna emphasize this word, you're gonna try a different version, try to do, like, he really, whoever directed this needed to get into their face and be like, no, do that again, repeat it, that wasn't good, that was good, keep it, do something else. But this part, like, he really needed to direct them better, because I think they're capable of that, they're just not being directed well, which is a shame. Then Zuko comes to the village, he's like, give me the Avatar, they're like, we're not gonna give it to you, blah blah blah. And then Avatar was like, you know what, well, they did portray Sokka as not still good of a warrior, which is good because he wasn't. He was just starting out. He was a kid, what, 16-year-old. He didn't really have much practice, so he was next to Zuko shown as, you know, inferior. And then Aang, kind of like on the same level as Zuko, he was like, no, you're not gonna hurt these people, but he did agree to come with them. I didn't get the point when Zuko said, go attack the village, burn the village, and Aang said, stop, and they all stopped. The soldiers should not stop because Aang said that. It should have been Zuko who was like, okay, stop, or the sentence before that should have been, soldiers prepare, warriors prepare to burn the village, whatever. And then they prepare, and Zuko and Aang comes in and says, okay, stop. Zuko goes, okay, guys, let's hear him out. Obviously not in that tone, not those exact words, but it could have been fleshed out better, more polished, so that it makes more sense. Then they take him. Well, he agrees to be taken. He talks to Iroh, which is a cute scene. I think that when they add something new, it actually does something different from the original show, which, you know, they have to crunch these 20 episodes in 8. So it makes sense that they would tell a story in a different way so that everything is still said, but just not, you know, in every detail. Aang set himself free using his airbending. He takes the keys, he gets out. I felt like there was a missed opportunity for them to fight on the ship. Maybe they didn't want to do that because it would take too long to be like, oh, hey, we have to do another fight, whatever. So they just let him fly. And then for how far can a fireball fly? Because Aang was like 200 meters away in the air, and they're shooting a fireball, and the ball is still flying to him and it hits him. Like, for how long is that happening? How long can it fly? It can't go indefinitely. So I was like, okay, why is it flying that long? Like, it should have been dissipated already in the air. But because there is nothing actual solid in that fireball, in that punch, like there's no solid thing to be burning and to have the weight to fly, is just fire itself. So I felt like it was unreal for it to fly that long, but it happened, it's fine. It hit Aang, he almost fell, but they caught him because Sokka and Katara took the APA, and they're like, hey girl, we're here to rescue you, honey. And then they took him, and then they flew away, and that's it. And then we have Zuko sulking again, but it's fine. That happened. And also Aang did take the scroll or whatever, the writings of Zuko, so he can be like, okay, let me learn something about avatars. And now Zuko's pissed that paper is missing, basically. And then we get to the air temple, and the biggest lacking factor for this entire episode was that final scene. Aang, of course, as an original show, loses his mind and he gets into the avatar state, and he's about to, you know, destroy the place. In the original show, the reason why he didn't do that is because everyone he knows is dead, but we have already established in those 2 original episodes a connection between him and Katara, as well as Sokka, but Katara mostly. We have established that connection, we know that they like each other, and we know that he can rely on her to pull him back, and that's exactly what happens. Here, they did not have that connection at all. It was not portrayed really well, they did not connect at all on that level. So her saying Aang with a reverb didn't really do anything, and the reason why he calmed down was because he thought of Monkiatsu. And I'm like, that, I don't know if that would be enough, because Monkiatsu being dead, who he saw laying there, his bones, that is the very factor that made him lose his mind, that made him go into the avatar state. That's the reason. So him thinking about Mankiyats's words wouldn't have that much meaning or that much power to calm him down. It had to have been Katara. So I think that was a missed opportunity to actually lose maybe some scenes, makes everything a bit slightly slower so that we can get to know Katara, get to more directorialship again, so that she can act better, emote, and that they connect, and then do it as the originally was, for her to kind of like pull him back with her words. And that concludes the episode 1, right? So now we get to episode 2, and I hope I'm not boring you. Like, I feel like I'm just giving you out information like Gran, but because I'm not making a reaction, maybe I'm gonna do that for the next episode. We'll see how this goes. But I want you guys to tell me your opinions. In conclusion, the episode was actually fine. It was fine. It was entertaining, and I think that them, again, cutting it short, trying to make it work, did actually make it work. Like, the episodes did make sense. It just lacked slight polish. I will say that, and again, my mind is somewhat comparing it to the movie, which is also good because the movie was absolute garbage. So I'm like, at least it's better than that, and it's not at least better. It's like much better than the actual movie. Like, that movie was trash, y'all. So I think that this first episode was like 6.5, 7 out of 10. Like, I think that's top rating that I can give it for now. And then we get to the episode 2 where they go to the Kyoshi Island. Oh my god, can we talk about Kyoshi warriors having full-on drag makeup? Like, that much vibrant color, that big space. They look like they were doing a colorful tribute to Kiss Band. Like, that makeup was literally drag, honey. But I kind of live for it, I'm not gonna lie. It was too much, but it's fine. I liked it. So we are finally being, well, not finally, it's only episode 2, but like, we are being introduced to Suki, Sokka's love, basically. Right, that's what happens. I know that the show has said that they're not gonna have Sokka be sexist, which I guess he somewhat was in the original show, but that is what gave this progression story arc for him. He grew up at the village with no other actual like men. It was just him being the oldest man there. He had to grow up on his own. He had to like defend the village from basically nothing, but that's what was happening in his mind. He was used to him being a king of the tribe while the women were doing the cooking and all that, blah, blah, blah. Like, that is all implied, we know that. So his mindset was somewhat sexist, yes, you can say that, but it's because of that his relationship with Suki started off the way it did, and she, and alongside with Kyoshi warriors, changed his mindset in that way. And later on, throughout 3 seasons, we see this huge progression of him respecting women much more than he did at the beginning. So it wasn't his pride being involved anymore, it's just pure humanity. So that is what was lacking here, but because of the deletion of that storyline. But again, cramping up the episodes, I get it. So he has some of that pride, and actor is portraying it well, I feel. And Suki is teaching him how to fight, and he's somewhat getting the grasp of it, and you can see that they like each other. So I think they did well there, to the portrayal of them two liking each other. I think it was okay. I'm not gonna say anything bad about that. Meanwhile, they came to that island in order to maybe for Aang to learn something, right? Meanwhile, Aang is literally not taking any books that they mentioned. He's not learning anything. He's just out there with Katara and playing with kids and eating, and then they go to the statue. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll do that. And then he goes into the spirit world, or he connects to his avatar state, and he's talking to Avatar Kyoshi, right? Which is lovely to see. However, the spirit world, that RGB effect was simply not doing it for me. I thought it was supposed to be much more ethereal and much more less tangible, let's say, less physical. And Avatar Kyoshi also lacked that fierceness, that presence of an avatar who is like head on, who is strong. There was no poise to her. There really wasn't. And that entire conversation with them two felt empty. Like, I cannot remember a single exchange that they had, because there was not actual worth in their words. There was nothing being exchanged. It was just being like, but how can I help anybody? I'm still not strong yet enough, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, you have to do it. And that's the entire thing. Like, there really wasn't much value in it. So what happens is, we have Zuko on the other side getting to Zhao, and he's saying, you gotta help me, we want to whatever, find something. And then through getting some further information, Zhao was like, oh, there's an avatar sighting, let's go and get him. And they go, Zuko follows, and they all get there, but they go on different, to the opposite sides. Zuko goes for the Avatar, meanwhile this one is fighting everybody there at the village. And Avatar Kyoshi says, which was a really cool scene, I'll give him that, she goes, well, I'll show you how to deal with these bastards, and she's like, and then Avatar Kyoshi materializes herself in the actual world, slams the freaking ground as the bad bitch she is, and she full on just, well, she annihilates everybody. She's like whoosh, 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 just full on slamming, killing bitches. That was lovely. That looked really good, and she looked menacing as hell. Like with the way those eyes closed, the way she was posing, that looked fierce as, like, it was really good. That looked great. And again, the effects, the visuals, the bending itself, everything looks great. Like they're really doing a good job there. I'm very proud of that. As somebody who was always a sucker as a kid, right? Like especially as a boy kid, like you really want to see good effects. You want to see good fighting. And that has kind of like continued throughout my life. I don't put as much value on it as I was when I was a kid, but I'm glad that it does look good. They put good money in there, some good money in there. So they fighting, they get to defend the island, and Avatar is like, Aang obviously is like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what that means, but what I'm trying to say, I feel like as much as progression is supposed to be made for his character, there's not much actual progression happening with him, because he still hasn't really learned anything, right? He's talking to these people, but he's not actually doing anything himself yet, because he doesn't have the skill, but then they're not giving him any opportunity to gain that skill. And what I wanted to talk about before is now comes into play, which is Katara possibly not having the most character progression out of everybody. The way she is being portrayed is, we don't see that love between them two, or not love, maybe it's too early, but we don't see even that much liking between Aang and Katara. Her waterbending, the way she's supposed to learn it, was in the original series, she was jealous how well Aang was doing it, but here she full on just did it and caused the wave, and she was fighting back those firebenders and stuff. She didn't learn much yet, obviously, but I think that besides that, and the relationship possibly happening later on if they decide to keep it, which they should, there's not much else to be done with her. I feel like she's gonna teach learn to bend, and that's it. Like they're gonna kind of stop there, because they're gonna stick to the original storyline most likely. So yeah, I don't know how to feel about her. And again, her acting was not something to be envious of, so I think she's gonna be the most struggling here. Then again, Sokka and Suki, they're having a good introduction to them. I think it's fine. She's being introduced to beyond the Kyoshi Island, to the rest of the world, which is also good. And that's about it, right? Like that's all that happened, I think, that happened. So how did you guys feel? I think I'm gonna, as I said, these two episodes, I'm gonna like, my top rating would be 7 out of 10, which I think is a good rating, by the way. To me, if it's a 6.5, it's decent, and everything above that can be watchable. So considering that I'm giving them a 7, it's a pretty good deal, I'm gonna say. And I think they're doing well, and I think that, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think that they're doing a decent job. I think there will be quite lack of polishing and emotional impact. I think that's gonna be the biggest lacking factor throughout the entire 8 episodes. There's not going to be too much character development, so therefore the emotional scenes are not going to be as emotional. We did see also Ozai, and he did look good. He does have that face. He looked good. I do think that both Shao and Ozai and so, like, they all had to maybe be taller, have some more grandiose appearance, a bit more menacing. But we're gonna see more of Ozai as this show goes, obviously. So we're gonna see. I did see hints of Azula as well, like in the trailer, and she really did not sell me in those trailers. She didn't look nowhere fierce as Azula is in the original show, and she was like my favorite character there. So I do hope that her acting will make up for the appearance, but we'll see. So that's about it. I'm gonna see how I'm gonna review 3rd and 4th episode and the rest of them. Maybe I'll actually make a reaction this time, but now I'm lacking behind the reaction, so this is what you're gonna get. Okay, so do sound off in the comments. What did you feel about the show? If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. Go ahead, tell me why you did like it, why you didn't like, whatever. Just engage. Let's talk about it, because I would like to engage with you guys. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this Avatar The Last Bender reaction. I'm gonna see you in the next one, whenever it happens, okay? So be there. Thank you. Bye.